Here's part two. I'm sorry about that. But he goes as far as to wanting to collect the tunes themselves. And why? Why? Because he's insane. That's why. He's insane. And it's it's really, how do I put this? It's really kind of unique how they presented this character. I mean, the first half of the pilot, the collector, as he's known, seems to be portrayed as not just an obsessive fan of Bonkers, but someone that's willing to do whatever it takes to get Bonkers. There really is. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention something. It just came to me. When I was talking about the edits and things taken out, one of the things they took out in the first part, the first half, was when Bonkers and Lucky are given the first assignment about the missing Toon Bear, Bubba. And after the chief says Bubba never got home, they, of course, go to the scene where Bubba's trying to escape from Doodles and all that, and escape from the collector. And, of course, in the original rotation, it shows him running, jumping, and then trying to climb out of the sewer, right? But then gets dragged back in. In the uncut version, they show him running and then jumping, but instead of showing him going out the sewer, they show him continuously running, you yelling for help, and then climbing up the ladders to try to get out. So, and then you have the silhouette of Mr. Doodle saying, "Oh, you're saying something like, 'Come back, trying to escape? Oh, the master wouldn't like that.'" And it's like, okay, why take that scene out? Again, though, just some of the things they did, but like I mentioned, if you ignore the edits and all that, and just look at the overall presentation of the story, it's pretty good. But like I said, you have this collector guy that at first, in the first half, is presented as someone that's so obsessive, he's willing to do whatever it takes to get his hands on Bonkers. So, anyway, anyway, um, you have this villain that's presented almost like a badass, psychotic villain, and then you find out that he not only is a obsessive fan of Bonkers, but he's willing, excuse me for the cracking of the knuckles, but he's willing to do whatever it takes to collect Bonkers. Yeah. See, the collector, as he's known, like I said, in the miniseries, or in the pilot, is so obsessive with collecting certain tunes and all that, that he goes as far as collecting, like I mentioned, the sets as well as the props. But now you might think, okay, fine. A lot of fans might do that in life if they're really obsessed or they're just really die-hard fans. We get that. But here's where it really kind of takes a little bit of a dark turn. He basically creates this machine called the laminator, which basically takes any tune that's captured, has Mr. Doodles basically pose them into a position, or forces them into a position, or something like that, and basically lowers this thing on top of them and laminates them in place. And basically basically all it is a laminator. It's basically a capsule machine that, when placed on top of the tune, laminates them and makes them immobile. So in other words, let me kind of give you an example. It's like if if it's like if the captured tune is posed like this, is posed into the position like is posed like this, and the laminator comes down. If they try the laminator comes down and laminates them into the capsule, they're like stuck. They're frozen in place. They can't move or anything. They can't move any limbs. I mean, they can blink eyes and all that. As we saw Bubba Bear, shed a tear and all that. but basically they are stuck in place. They can't move. In other words, they're alive, or as the collector would tell Bonkers, they're immobile. So, yeah, he's basically insane. A psychotic, insane, obsessive fan. So, he goes as far as having Mr. Doodles in the first half capture Bonkers' friends, laminate them into these lamination capsules, and keep them immobile. So, well, basically immobile to the point that they can't really move. I mean, they could probably move their head just a bit as we saw with Fall Apart, but still. The point is they can't really move that much. Now, like I said, overall the presentation of the story is good because it kind of starts the building blocks for Lucky and Bonkers, and it kind of helps Lucky understand that, okay, Bonkers may not have experience as a cop as the chief, who right off the bat, you could tell is kind of a, not all there. It's kind of like very absent-minded, very, just absent-minded. It's just not all really there. Just scattered brain kind of chief. I mean, basically he's smart enough to become the chief, obviously, but he's not, all there. So, anyway, like I said, Lucky comes to realize that even though Bonkers may not have the experience of a cop like the chief believes he does, but he realizes that Bonkers is an asset. He is a partner that, from a Toon's perspective, knows what's going on, understands what's going on, and pretty much can sense when something's wrong or right from a Toon perspective. So you kind of get that evolution, that kind of evolution of that relationship, that partnership between the two. I do like the fact that we do get introduced to the family, and through the family, you kind of have Lucky kind of soften throughout the series and kind of let Bonkers grow on him at times. Not completely like he's really softened up and all that, but basically through his wife Delandra, who you could tell has a southern accent, and is voiced by April Winchell, who in the previous year was the voice of Peg in Goof Troop. And you have his daughter Marilyn, who becomes a good friend of Bonkers and sometimes becomes involved in the cases, involved in the stories as well. And despite how you might feel about her, I'll say this when it comes to the Marilyn character, she's really not that much of a bother. The way I look at it, the way they wrote Marilyn in, they wrote her as a very smart and intelligent character. I know that sounds strange, but if they would have done an episode where they did a kids division of cops, boom, there you go. I mean, she would be the first run on the list. There's no doubt about that. But still, I like how they wrote the character in it. I really do, and I like how she is a strong supporter of Bonkers. I really do. Even though she's a kid, she can understand from his perspective. I really do. Anyway, getting back on it, it's through her, through the wife, that Lucky comes to kind of understand and trust Bonkers and kind of respect him, and like I say, let him grow on him a bit. And this is what leads towards the climax, towards the end of the pilot. Basically, Lucky finds out that Bonkers, through his pet horn, Toots, which is his dog, that Bonkers was right about this whole situation. And like I said, it leads right to the climax where you have, not only Bonkers and Lucky saving Bonkers, but you have them finally confronting, in a sense, battling the Collector in a duel, at least Bonkers is. But then you have the Laminator destroyed and all that throughout the process. But then you get the ending. You get the ending of it. And the ending, some might say it's kind of underwhelming. And, as good as the story is, this I would say is probably the one thing I would have changed. Basically, you take this villain who, in the first half of the pilot, and somewhat in the beginning of the second half, you present as somewhat of a badass villain, someone that's really dangerous and psychotic. And he basically turns out to be a geeky human, an obsessive fan of tunes, in disguise. Basically turns out to be a human in disguise. You basically destroy any credibility this villain would have had by basically have him be revealed as just a geeky, obsessive tune fan of a human, a nerd, if you will, no offense to that term at all, in disguise. But here, and again, as much as underwhelming as that is, you still have him say he's a tune. Even after he's revealed to be a human, he's a tune. He still believes he's a tune. To the point that when he falls into the prop box, and that's something else that gets introduced, something that's like another world dimension, basically where tune objects or props can come out of nowhere. You have him saying he's a tune, even as he falls and disappears into the prop box, which pretty much, I guess, is a more safe equivalent, as we find out from Bonkers. Oh yeah, he's fine, he's cool. Equivalent of main villain dying, but he's alive. And again, like I said, as good as the rest of the story was, the ending was underwhelming. Not the ending, but the revelation of the villain was underwhelming. It's like you could have done so much more with this. You could have gone the Judge Doom route if you wanted to, or you could have done something similar to that. But to have him revealed to be a geeky, nerdy tune fan in disguise, who obviously mentally is not all there and believes he's a tune himself. To have it end like that, kind of underwhelming. It doesn't really hurt the overall presentation of the story, but still, it could have been done better. And when I look at the overall presentation of this, I like how they kind of have, and it's shown in the background in several episodes later, or throughout the Lucky Perkel episodes. I like how they do have a framed picture of Lucky, Bonkers, and Bonkers' friends all posing together after the case is solved and they're saved. I like how that's kind of still there because it represents the first case together. But again, though, the ending with the villain, the climax of the whole situation with the Collector was, just underwhelming in a sense that it could have been a lot more. And and get this, they left the freaking door open for more to be done. They did. I mean, how can you have? Because here's the thing: how can you have a human who thinks he's a tune, thinks he's a tune because he's dressed as one in disguise? How can you have him fall into this prop box, disappear, and there not be any kind of conclusion to it? Yeah, you can put chains around the box and all that, because obviously, there's more to it than just being a prop box. But still, how can you not capitalize on doing more with this? Now, here's what's funny. When Disney had Capcom do several Bonkers video games for several of the 16-bit consoles at the time, One of the more popular ones, if not one of the more fun ones, is the one for the SNES. Hold on, I'll show you. This. It's like